details have started emerging as to the original intention of those alleged coup plotters who, according to information, were intending to unseat the man Tinubu from office. As we have it, according to Premium Times, the original intention of those alleged coup plotters was to kill the man Tinubu, kill Shettima, and other top government officials. Remember that yesterday, in a surprise move, Tinubu changed his service chiefs, and Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa have since been replaced with General Olufemi Oluyede, as we have it currently. I will bring you quickly the news from Premium Times. But remember that before now, Sahara reporters had exclusively reported that there was attempted coup. And of course, a situation that made the military high command to detain about 16 high military ranking personnel. But the government have since come out to debunk that insinuation before now. But the event that is coming out have actually vindicated Sahara reporters. But let me quickly go to Premium Times and bring you up to speed with the recent development involving the original intention of those coup plotters, how they plan to take away the man Tinubu, Shettima, and other government officials. And as we have it, there's another exclusive report, this time around, of course, from the same Sahara reporter, claiming that some of those coup plotters, alleged coup plotters, were in the office of the National Security Advisor. I will bring you the details. You'll see that on the screen as I talk to you. But let me quickly take you up to speed with the angle of Premium Times. Like as I told you, this is a tweet from Premium Times. It says, exclusive, how suspected coup plotters plan to kill Tinubu, Shettima, other top officials. Let me quickly go to the news proper so that you have a sense of what we are discussing here. It says, how suspected officers allegedly plan to hit top Nigerian officials. Source. You go further to say that key officials targeted for assassination include President Tinubu, Vice President Shettima, Senate President Godwill Akpabio, Speaker of House of Representatives Tajuddin ABASS. He say, our source said. Going forward, I say, top intelligence sources have provided insight into how some military officers accused of alleged coup plot plan to overthrow President Bola Tinubu and disrupt Nigerian democracy. Premium Times has reported how about 20 officers were arrested and detained for allegedly planning to stage the coup. A top military source familiar with the development told this newspaper that the development caused tension in government, forcing presidency to cancel the National Independence Day parade, usually done on October 1. However, an investigative panel has been set up to probe the officers involved. 25th October. According to insider accounts, the suspected coup plotters scheduled 25 October to strike. That was the tentative date. The source said, if things did not work out that way, they will continue plotting. The Independence Day parade would have been observed, according to our sources. The parade could have been held since the arrests were made before October 1. But the government did not want to take risks since it was a military ceremony, another officer said. There was no clear details about the identities of the officers involved yet. For now, let me stop there. But let me quickly say that before now, the government, through the armed forces, have rejected or rather debunked any rumor of possible coup plots. But they say there's no smoke without fire. Surprise sacking of the service chiefs, of course, point to the direction that there must have been such. And if you look at the firing of the service chiefs, it's going to show that in a way, though the information is not yet out, it means the service chiefs must have been indicted. Or if they are not indicted, it clearly shows that the president have lost confidence in the service chiefs. Because ordinarily, there's no reason they should be fired if they were not indicted and if the presidency have confidence in their capacities to continue serving him. Because we understand that the president is the president and the commander of the armed forces. he reserved the power to hire and fire service chiefs. But as you have it, they're all be fired. And we already have new service chiefs. But the question here is, how can the government continue to forestall such? Because if actually such existed, it means there's every possibility that other military personnel could still be nursing such intention or ambition. So it's going to show that all is not yet the huru, that the government must be circumspect if this democracy must be sustained. Because as you have it, it has been established that the worst form of democracy is better than the best military rule. Because we are seeing military takeover in some part of the African countries of late. I think that would have even heightened the apprehension in government circle in Nigeria. Because before now, one would have thought that it is not possible for military to strike and take over government and sustain their government in this 21st century. But in recent time, we have seen a coup that happened in Burkina Faso, talking about the current president or the current military president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. We have seen the one that equally happened in Niger, Mali, and as we have it, these three countries have since pulled out of ECOWAS, forming their own Sahel alliance. And these have threatened the stability of the once united African ECOWAS, talking about Economic Community of West African States. Because even the quest to fight insurgency by Nigeria, at some point, the military do not have the needed cooperation they need from their neighbors. But I understand that the Nigerian government, the military, are trying to see how they can rebuild confidence with their neighbors, particularly Niger, that we share common boundary with in so many states. Because if you look at the insurgency in Nigeria, just as it has been established that most of those bandits, Fulani militias, are foreigners who take advantage of our porous borders. So I want to say that if we are not in good relationship, we have a diplomatic row with a neighbor like Niger Republic, is going to have a very big negative impact on our armed forces in fighting this insurgency. Because if they are not collaborative, if they commit crime here, they go to the other country to hibernate, it will be difficult for Nigerian government to get them arrested or even seek the support of their neighbors. So that is why the government, as a matter of urgency and necessity, must look at how to ensure that they have good relationship with their neighbors. But apart from that, what does this portend for Nigerian democracy? Because personally, I want to believe that this democracy must be guided with every seriousness it deserves. Because however I look at it, if military comes in, nobody can determine when they will leave or rather hand over to democratically elected president. Because I understand that in the past, when the likes of IBB struck and the seized government, it took time for us to return to this democracy. We could remember how they were changing government from IBB to Abacha. It took so much time before the democracy we enjoy today, before we could achieve it. So we know the effort and the sacrifice of many Nigerians who were in the trenches fighting for the restoration of democracy before we finally have this democracy in 1999. I must say that Nigeria have enjoyed democracy uninterrupted from 1999 to date, and we have since seen government being transited from one party to another. Talking about after a PDP governed Nigeria for about 16 years, in 2015, of course, opposition APC won election under through Muhammadu Buhari, and we have seen another change of government from another APC president to another APC president. So the point is, we want this democracy to evolve. We want to nurture it, and it will not be good if military comes to truncate it. Because if they truncate it, definitely is going to be a setback for our democracy. I'm not saying that we have gotten it right with the democracy. I'm not saying that we have gotten it right with democracy, because there are so many areas of tenets of democracy that, in my consideration, that we are not gotten right, particularly in the conduct of free, fair, and credible election. But however, if we truncate it at this point, if we come back later to start, we would have will be going back to start from all the areas would have evolved beyond. So that is why it's good that we nurture the democracy and allow it to flourish. Any area we see lacuna, we see inefficiency, we address it and move forward. Because currently I'm of the view that the position of National Assembly trying to review the Electoral Act, particularly the area that gives INEC the discretionary power to determine the mode of transfer of election results, should be reviewed and let INEC be compared by the Electoral Act that you must transmit the election results electronically for us to have free, fair, and credible election. You can understand that in 2023 presidential election, the bane upon which all the major opposition political parties contested the result of the election was because they were not satisfied that there was a genuine network glitch as claimed by INEC. Because understand that before that election, the pressure was on National Assembly to review the Electoral Act. And as we had it, they reviewed the Electoral Act and gave INEC discretionary power to determine the mode of transfer of election results. But even as INEC gave us guideline and promised that they were going to transmit the election result electronically, I want to say that they reneged at the nick of time, and of course, that is why the election results were contested. And I want to say that we're going to another round of election, talking of 2027 presidential election with that same Electoral Act that is susceptible to manipulation. I want to say that we may come back and start singing the same song. That is why it's very important that we review it, remove that discretionary power from INEC, compare INEC that you must transmit the election results electronically so that we can have free, fair, and credible election. And that has to do with, of course, at this point, I think we are matured enough. Our democracy is have evolved to the point where we can start having independent candidacy. I say this because all the major political parties, if you look at the form, the expression of interest form and nomination forms for elected positions, like the presidency, the governors, House of Rep, Senate, and even almost all the elected positions, it is always too expensive. So that if you don't have deep pockets, you will not be able to purchase it. So the question here is, we must, at some point, entrench independent candidacy in the electoral process. So that if you are popular in your jurisdiction, if you are popular in your constituency, it is irrespective of whether you have deep pocket or not, you can stand an election and test your popularity at the pool. That's on one hand. Then another issue has to do with how do we address litigation after an election. Because currently, the burden of proof to prove that an election was rigged lies in the petitioner. And saying that going forward, let us review it. Let us transfer that burden of proof to the umpire, INEC. Of course, we understand that INEC is the umpire that uses the Electoral Act, and INEC is the one that is in custody of all the election materials after the election. Because we have cases in the past where petitioners will be raising issues that the umpire, talking about INEC, is frustrating their ability to prove their case, because in most cases we have seen accusation that INEC will not be willing and ready to release some relevant documents, information that is at their disposal, used for the election, that a petitioner needs to prosecute his or her case. So that's why I'm saying that let INEC be the one that go to court to prove that the election substantially complies with Electoral Act. That way, I want to believe that INEC personnel and INEC itself will be more serious to know that yes, they are the one that will eventually go to court to prove that election was not rigged and all of that, to defend the result they declare. But meanwhile, let me say very big thank you for your time. This is Shettima that I'm Mr.